My wife invited her affair partner into our own home and even shared our bed with him. She didn't know it yet, but I had just put into motion a carefully crafted plan that would unravel her life completely. I'm a 34-year-old man, and I was married to a woman named Vi, who's now 32. We had been together for 8 years. Our story began in college, during the roughest stretch of our lives. We were broke, young, and full of dreams. Vi wasn't exactly the type to turn heads in a crowd. She wasn't supermodel beautiful, but there was something quietly magnetic about her. She had this soft-spoken exterior, majoring in accounting, with an ambitious fire that flickered to life when you least expected it. She could dominate any conversation when she let her guard down. I was studying business, backed by a few helpful family connections and enough money to eat more than just microwave noodles. While others worried about making rent, I could enjoy small comforts. That balance between her grit and my resources seemed to make us a solid pair. We got married right after graduation, nothing grand or lavish, just a simple courthouse wedding and dinner afterwards. My parents paid for it all, since her family couldn't contribute a dime. I probably should have taken that as an early warning sign. Vi had always been fixated on appearances, status, money, the finer things. She might have kept it low-key on the surface, but deep down she craved prestige and recognition. Maybe that's where things started to go wrong. Fast forward to just 2 months ago. My career had taken off. I secured a corner office at work, drove a company car, and enjoyed a generous bonus structure. I was the golden boy of my firm, consistently exceeding targets and building valuable client relationships. Vi was also doing well, on paper, at least. She had landed a job at a respected finance firm downtown, and her rapid rise through the ranks was suspicious, to say the least. Promotions seemed to come every 8 to 10 months for her, while her colleagues spent years grinding through the same rules. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. She wasn't getting ahead on merit alone. I had made a few quiet calls, pulled a few strings. She never knew. That was my first mistake. Despite our individual successes, our marriage sat somewhere in the gray zone. We weren't falling apart, but we certainly weren't thriving either. From the outside, we looked like the textbook Instagram couple. Dinners with friends, selfies on vacation, smiles that could light up a feed. But beneath the curated photos and picture-perfect moments, something always felt slightly off, like she was just playing a role, waiting for a better option to appear on the horizon. Then came the Portland project, a major deal that required me to spend 2 weeks out of town. If I pulled it off, the financial payoff would be substantial. Vi played the part of the loving, supportive spouse to a T. She made my favorite dinner the night before I left, gifted me sleek new luggage, and even got adventurous in bed, something we hadn't done in months. "You're going to crush it, babe. I believe in you," she whispered as I drifted off. The first week away was normal. We video chatted every evening. She asked about my presentations, told me about her day, and even sent photos of meals she supposedly cooked. I had my doubts. Most of it looked like high-stand takeout. But I let it slide. I wanted to believe we were still okay, that we were still us. But things took a nosedive during the second week. Her texts became unusually brief. I'd send paragraphs filled with updates and thoughts, only to receive replies like "nice" or "sounds good." Our nightly calls dropped from a comfortable 30 minutes to barely 8. Her excuse? Always exhausted. Always early meetings. Always too tired to talk. One night, during a video call, I noticed something strange. Our living room looked off. There used to be this coral-colored throw pillow on the couch. V loved it so much that we had full-blown arguments whenever guests wanted to move it. Now it was gone, replaced by a black and gold designer-looking cushion I'd never seen before. "Hey, what happened to the coral pillow?" I asked casually. "Oh, that old thing? Just felt like switching things up," she replied with a shrug. That struck me as incredibly odd. Vi didn't just switch things up without a week-long debate, but what followed next was even worse. I heard laughter, clearly male, in the background. "Who's that?" I asked, trying not to sound alarmed. "Just the TV," she said smoothly. But I knew that wasn't true. I had installed our entertainment system myself. Our sound ran through a high-quality Sonos soundbar. That sound? It didn't come from any screen. That was a real man's voice echoing from somewhere in our home. She ended the call quickly, citing a sudden headache. The following days only added fuel to my suspicions. She stopped replying to my goodnight messages. Our mutual location sharing, which we both used for safety reasons, was abruptly disabled. Her Instagram stories began showing strange angles of our house, angles she never used before. In one of them, I swear I saw a man's watch on our coffee table. I didn't confront her. I just waited. I worked overtime, pushing to wrap the Portland project early. I needed to get back. I landed on a Thursday afternoon, around 2:00 p.m. As usual, I sent her a text. Just landed. It had been our ritual for years. She always replied. Always. This time, silence. The Uber ride back home felt like an eternity. I kept refreshing my phone, hoping I'd missed her reply. Nothing came. When I arrived, I rolled my suitcase up the driveway and reached for my key. It didn't work. Confused, I tried again. Still nothing. That's when I noticed the lock was new. Someone had replaced it. I stared in disbelief, trying to process what was happening. My phone buzzed. A message from Vi. I've found someone better. Don't try to come in. I've moved on. I looked up at the security camera I had installed just a few months earlier. The red light blinked. Someone was watching the live feed. She was inside, watching me from the comfort of our living room, probably with him, probably laughing. 8 years of marriage, over in an instant. But here's the twist. I didn't explode. I didn't break down. I didn't feel shocked. Instead, an eerie calm washed over me. Deep down, I think I always knew this day would come. I stared into the lens of that camera. No tears, no rage, just quiet resolve. I typed out one final message. Are you sure about that? She started typing a reply, but I didn't stick around to read it. I turned, grabbed my suitcase, and walked back down the driveway. No dramatic exit, no begging or pleading. Just me, checking out of the life I thought I was building, like a guest leaving a hotel that had long since lost its charm. As I walked away from the place I once called home, suitcase wheels clicking against the pavement, I felt a strange sense of freedom. It wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter I hadn't realized I needed. Everything she had tried to hide was now in the open, and she had no idea that I had already started preparing for this moment long before she made her choice. She thought she ended it on her terms, but the real reckoning hadn't even started yet. I stared at my phone, watching those familiar little dots appear and vanish as she tried to craft a response. Vi, my wife, well, ex-wife in everything but paperwork, was clearly struggling to come up with the right words. Maybe she was panicking. Maybe she thought I'd rage, shout, plead, maybe even cry. Maybe she was bracing herself for some cinematic meltdown that would make her feel like the powerful one. She didn't know me as well as she thought. There was no way I'd give her that moment. Not a chance. She had no idea I'd been preparing for this exact scenario for years. Quietly, systematically. All the promotions she'd enjoyed, all the job offers that came out of nowhere, the access to high-end investment opportunities. Those weren't strokes of luck. I'd pulled those strings. Every door that opened, every ladder she climbed, I'd built that framework. She thought she was in control. She thought she'd earned all of it. The truth was, I allowed it to happen. And just as easily as I gave her that lifestyle, I could dismantle it brick by brick. She thought she made her move first. But all she did was pull the trigger on a loaded game I set in motion years ago. So after walking away from my own home like some kind of action hero, not that I felt heroic, if I'm being honest, I checked into a Holiday Inn about 10 minutes away. Nothing luxurious, just a place to sit, breathe, and piece together my next move. I was still processing it all. The betrayal, the way she'd shut me out without a second thought. But I wasn't going to spiral. I didn't have time for that. I needed intel. I needed clarity. First, I called Mac. We'd been boys since the sophomore year of college. He was my second roommate after the first one bailed halfway through the semester. Mac's the kind of guy who always knows what's going on, and more importantly, knows how to find out what's not being said. He picked up on the first ring. "Where the hell are you, man?" he barked. "Your location says some hotel." "Holiday Inn, on Westchester," I replied flatly. "Dude, what happened?" I gave him the short version, 10 seconds of raw facts. He went quiet. "Give me an hour," he said. "I'll call you back." While Mac got to work, I decided to dig into things myself. Vi never was good with tech. She had me set up her email signature just last year. So I tried logging into our shared cloud storage. Yup, same password from 3 years ago. I was in. And there they were. Dozens of photos, time-stamped and geotagged. She and some guy I'd never seen before. In our house. On our couch. The same couch I bought with my year-end bonus. Pictures from days I remembered being away. Business trips, long work nights, even while I was on video calls with her. In one photo, the laptop was open in the background, showing my face on the screen while she leaned into this guy's chest. The pieces clicked into place. All those nights she said she was too tired, needed to sleep early, she was entertaining him, possibly even seconds after hanging up with me. They'd been parading around the house, taking selfies in our kitchen, even drinking wine out of the crystal glasses we got as a wedding gift. I didn't feel rage. I felt something colder, calculated, as if the final piece of the puzzle had just snapped into place. My phone buzzed. It was Vi. "You're taking this better than I expected," she wrote. "No fight left in us, huh? Guess I was right about finding someone better." I didn't respond. Not yet. Mac's call came in a few minutes later. "All right, bro," he said. "Got the scoop. Need to this. Hit me. Guy's name is Zeke, works at a rival firm. Supposedly came in as a client about 3 months back. They've been spotted at the wine bar on 7th, the steakhouse downtown. Even that Italian spot you guys used for your anniversary dinner." I gritted my teeth. "Classy," Mac continued. "It gets better. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. My guy Dom works in the same sector. Zeke has a reputation. He targets women, like Vi. Married, ambitious, with insider access. Wines them, dines them, makes them feel special, then siphons information for his company. Then he ghosts. So he's using her," I muttered, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. "Exactly. But she doesn't know that yet. Dom says he's done this 3 or 4 times. It's like his playbook. Designer gifts, big dates, smooth talk, and then, poof, all while leaking industry secrets to his actual employer." The plan started forming in my head. I thanked Mac and ended the call, then scrolled through my contacts. I stopped when I saw a name. Jen. Jen worked at Vi's firm. Gorgeous, brilliant, intimidatingly confident, MBA from Wharton, killer heels, and a sharp tongue to match. Vi despised her. Always accused of dressing provocatively and flirting with everyone's husband. What Vi didn't know was that Jen had been quietly flirting with me for years. I never crossed any lines. I was loyal to Vi despite all the opportunities not to be. But Jen and I had chemistry. She always found a reason to touch my arm, to laugh at my jokes a little longer than necessary. Vi noticed. She hated it. I hit call. "Jack, everything okay?" Jen's voice was surprised but calm. "Hey Jen," I said, trying to keep it light. "Remember that drink you've been suggesting for the past year? I'm free tonight." There was a pause. Then laughter. "Vi, finally loosen the leash?" "B's gone," I said, "permanently." Another pause. "That bar on 9th, she said. 8 o'clock? Perfect." I hung up, suddenly feeling lighter, as if the air around me had shifted. I reopened my photo gallery, scrolling past years of memories. Me and Vi smiling in Bali, clinking glasses in Aspen, posing with our dog during Christmas. 8 years together, and she trashed it all for some fast-talking corporate parasite. Part of me was furious, but another part, relieved, like I had finally been given permission to let go. I took a long shower, put on my best jeans, a crisp button-down, and spritzed on my favorite cologne. As I waited for my Uber, my phone started buzzing again. One message, then another. "What did you mean by that text?" "Jack, please, answer me. Can we at least talk about this like adults? Are you seriously ghosting me right now?" I watched the messages roll in, each one more frantic than the last, but I didn't respond, not yet. She needed to sit in the silence. She needed to know she no longer had control. Tonight I was meeting Jen, and tomorrow I'd start dismantling every illusion Vi had built for herself, one brick at a time. As I stepped into the Uber, the cool evening air brushing against my skin, I glanced back at the hotel. No longer a refuge, but a temporary stop between who I was and who I was about to become. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my own life, from the woman who thought she could burn down our world and walk away unscathed. She might have thought she won, but I hadn't even started playing yet. I flipped my phone to silent mode and slid it into my pocket. Whatever message Vi was trying to get across could wait. Tonight was about something else entirely, the next phase of my life, one that didn't include lies, manipulation, or betrayal. As I approached the bar, Jen was already there, seated at a corner table by the window. She looked absolutely stunning in a little black dress that made half the room stop and take notice. As she rose to greet me, I caught at least 3 guys glancing over, envy written all over their faces. We sat, ordered drinks, and let the energy of the night wash over us. For the first time in what felt like ages, I was enjoying myself, genuinely enjoying the presence of someone who made me feel seen. Jen was sharp, quick-witted, and knew how to hold a conversation without turning it into a competition. No jabs about my long work hours, no subtle digs about promotions, just effortless back and forth that made the drinks go down easy. Eventually, after our second round, Jen gave me a curious look. "So, what's the story with Vi?" she asked. I leaned back, swirling my drink. "You want the real version or the polite summary?" "Whichever one you can tell without flipping the table." I smiled and gave her the abbreviated rundown. As I spoke, I watched her expression shift from intrigue to shock to full-on disbelief. By the time I finished, she let out a low whistle. "Holy hell," she said. "That's a lot." "Yeah," I replied, shrugging in an attempt to look nonchalant, "but I'm not dwelling on it. I'm moving forward, starting tonight." Jen gave me a look that blended sympathy with something harder to define, maybe curiosity, maybe interest. "Well, for what it's worth," she said, raising her glass. "I always thought she didn't really value what she had." We clinked glasses. She leaned in, took a quick selfie of us mid-set and posted it to her Instagram with the caption, "Finally got that drink," along with the bar's geotag. I knew for a fact that V followed her. That post was going to hit like a grenade. By the time we were finishing our main course, steak for me, sea bass for her, Vi had already called me 17 times. Every single call went unanswered. I didn't even bother checking the messages. Dinner turned into dessert, and dessert into a third round of drinks. When we finally stepped out into the cool night air, Jen hesitated outside her apartment building. "You want to come up?" she asked. "No pressure, it's still early." Part of me hesitated. Was it too soon? Was I just reacting emotionally? But another part, one that remembered Vi's smirking face in those photos with Zeke on our couch, decided life was too damn short. "I'd love to," I said simply. The next morning I woke up to a barrage of notifications, over 30 new messages from Vi, ranging from furious rants to confused apologies to desperate pleas. I didn't respond to a single one. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee, stepped onto Jen's balcony, and snapped a photo of the city skyline, 2 coffee cups in frame, caption, "Great start to a new chapter." Then I posted it to my own Instagram. Let her interpret it however she wanted. After Jen left for work, with plans to meet again that night, I booted up my laptop and got to work. The time for passive revenge was over. It was time for precision. I started sending out emails to select people, old colleagues, firm contacts, and a couple of influential board members I had stayed in touch with over the years. The subject? A heads up about a man named Zeke, who was allegedly cultivating personal relationships with female executives to gain confidential access to internal data. By noon, I had 3 meetings lined up with individuals who could help investigate and, if needed, report Zeke's activities to the appropriate authorities. If Vi thought she'd partnered with a Prince Charming, she was about to learn he was a parasite in a tailored suit. But my campaign didn't stop there. I knew Vi's career history better than she did because I had essentially constructed it. 5 years ago, she was stuck in a mid-level position, frustrated and bitter about being constantly passed over. I remember night after night listening to her complain about Jessica getting promoted again or some new hire being brought in above her. She always painted herself as the victim, never once considering that maybe she just wasn't standout material. I decided to help, quietly, strategically. My family wasn't rich, but we had weight in the right circles. I made a few discreet phone calls. My uncle Rob, who sat on the board of a growing investment firm, mentioned they were looking to expand. I arranged for Vi to coincidentally meet one of the hiring managers at a fundraising gala my mom was co-hosting. 2 weeks later, she received an offer for a senior account manager position, 2 levels above where she'd been stuck. She was ecstatic, believing it was her charisma and wit that landed her the job. What she didn't know was that I'd also invested $250,000 0 cents into the firm through a shell company I created using my mother's maiden name, Morgan Holdings. Subtle enough to go unnoticed. That investment gave me influence in her division's expansion plan, including silent investor privileges. When she signed her contract, she unknowingly agreed to terms that allowed me to stay connected to the firm through advisory channels. For years, she operated under the delusion that her progress was organic. In reality, I'd built her success like an architect constructs a skyscraper, steel beam by steel beam. So as I sat in my hotel room, sipping more coffee, I logged into the admin portals I had retained access to, set up during my years of involvement. What I saw next was appalling. In just the past month, Vi had charged over $20,000 0 cents in business expenses, a $1,000 designer couch, an $8,000 0 cents luxury watch, a client retreat in Napa Valley that cost over $5,000 0 cents, none of which had any actual clients attending. Everything was labeled with vague descriptors like client comfort materials and strategic event planning. It was a paper trail of fraud, and I had the receipts. Just then my phone rang. It was SS Via's younger sister. We'd always gotten along. She was the only one in Via's family who seemed genuinely grounded. "Jack, do you have a second?" she asked, her voice tense. "Sure, what's up?" "I can't stay quiet anymore," she said. "Zeke, the guy Vi's seeing, he's dangerous. He's done this before, several times." I sat forward. "Done what, exactly?" "Natural. Pointed to executives. Gets involved with women like Vi, executives, women in sensitive roles. He romances them, builds trust, then gets them to share confidential data. When he's milked them dry, he ghosts, changes numbers, deletes socials, gone like smoke." My grip on the phone tightened. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" "I wasn't sure, but I heard him on a call last night. He didn't know I was in the hallway. He was talking to someone. Said something about pushing Vi a little more, and another 2 weeks max before she's tapped out." My mind went razor sharp. Zeke wasn't just a player, he was a predator, and Vi had no idea. But she was about to find out. "He's already taken everything he needs," S told me over the phone, her voice trembling with a mix of urgency and frustration. 3 women from Vi's company lost their jobs because of him last year. He sinks his claws in, extracts everything, then vanishes like he was never there. Honestly, I'm not even surprised anymore. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for more. "How do you know all this?" I asked, my tone careful but firm. "Because Vi's been asking me to hold on to documents for her," she admitted. "Said it was just in case things ever went south at work. I didn't think much of it until last night. But Jack, it's bad." "How bad?" "She's been funneling serious money around. Huge purchases masked as business expenses, and there are emails between her and Zeke. They're discussing confidential client data, merger details, investor portfolios, sensitive timelines." My stomach tightened. "Can you send me copies?" "Already did," she said. "Check your email." I pulled up my inbox and sure enough, there it was. A digital folder filled with spreadsheets, PDF scans, and entire email chains that made my blood run cold. The evidence was irrefutable. Vi had been embezzling company funds and leaking sensitive information directly to Zeke. And the kicker? She'd done it all through her work email, the very account I helped her set up years ago. She'd never bothered to change the recovery number, which still routed through my phone. That tiny bit of laziness was about to cost her everything. It was time to shift gears. I called Dave, my longtime attorney. We'd played more rounds of golf than I could count, and he'd handled everything from minor contracts to estate planning after my parents passed. If anyone could help me now, it was him. "Jesus, Jack," he muttered after I sent him the initial batch of documents. "This isn't just messy, it's criminal. We're talking embezzlement, corporate espionage. She could be looking at serious prison time." I shook my head. "I'm not trying to put her in jail," I clarified. "I just want to ensure she doesn't walk away with everything I've built. This wasn't a partnership. It was me building and her posing." There was a pause on the line before Dave responded. "Okay, here's what we do next." While Dave put together a legal roadmap, I decided to turn up the pressure. I shot Vi a carefully worded text. Had an enlightening conversation about those expense reports, especially from last month. "The Italian leather couch looks great in our living room, by the way, classy taste. But I imagine the company might be curious where the funding came from." Her response was immediate. "What are you talking about?" I followed it up with another jab. "Also, Zeke's professional history makes for captivating reading material. 3 settlements in 2 years, quite the portfolio." The typing indicator popped up, then vanished, then came back, then stopped again. "Finally, Jack, we need to talk. I have a meeting with the ethics committee tomorrow. Please, not now." Her panic practically dripped from the screen. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a new picture with Jen, this time from breakfast at a stylish little spot downtown. Sunlight streamed across the table, illuminating Jen's radiant smile and her effortlessly tousled hair. 2 cappuccinos sat untouched in the frame. The caption, "Fueling up for the week ahead." It got 50 likes in under 10 minutes, including from several of our mutual friends. I could practically hear the echo of Vi's frustration reverberating through the phone she was no doubt clinging to. That afternoon, S called again. She's losing it, Jack. I just got off the phone with her. She's hysterical, screaming about some ethics hearing and accusing me of stealing her documents. Don't get pulled into this, I warned her. Today's going to be turbulent. Best keep your distance. I spent the next few hours locking in meetings, one with the company's CEO, another with their chief of security, and a third with a compliance officer, also known as the money lady, who had been suspicious of Vi's spending for months but hadn't yet nailed her down. Now, she wouldn't have to. I'd hand her everything, neatly packaged and time-stamped. By dusk, everything was in place. My legal angles were covered. The corporate dominoes had been aligned. All I had to do now was flick the first tile. That evening, I met Jen again at a quiet Thai restaurant far from the prying eyes of Vi's social circle. She walked in wearing a form-fitting green dress that nearly made me forget the mission entirely. "So, what's the plan for tomorrow?" she asked over a shared bowl of mango sticky rice. "Full nuclear." I smiled but shook my head. Not quite. I'm going for controlled demolition. I don't want to destroy the company. There are too many good people there. I just want to surgically remove Vi from her throne and leave the rest intact. Jen raised an eyebrow. That's surprisingly merciful. The firm didn't betray me, I said. She did. And you're right. It's not just about revenge anymore. She nodded, especially considering I still work there. I laughed. Exactly. Especially you. We shared a quiet moment, her hand brushing mine, her eyes locking onto mine with a mix of admiration and something deeper. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. My phone buzzed, an alert from the home security system. Motion detected, home office. I opened the live feed and nearly laughed. Vi was tearing the place apart, digging through filing cabinets, flinging folders, rifling through drawers. She was searching for the documents that tied her success to my involvement. But the real gold mine? Safely stored in a deposit box halfway across town. The safe behind our honeymoon photo, the one she was now trying to pry open with a letter opener, contained nothing but a single envelope with a handwritten note inside. You should have read the fine print. I showed the video feed to Jen, who nearly choked on her wine. "Oh my God," she gasped, laughing. "She looks absolutely unhinged." B called 7 more times that night. I let each call slide straight to voicemail. The last one? She was crying. "Jack, please. Whatever you think is going on, it's not what it looks like. Zeke isn't who you think. He's helping me with my career. He believes in me. Please. Just call me before you do something we'll both regret." I set the phone down without responding. Too late, Vi. About 8 years too late. Later, lying in Jen's bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, bone-deep peace. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't bitter. I was ready. The last thing I did before drifting off was send Vi one final text. "Check your inbox tomorrow at 8:00. IM. Focus on the attachment dated March 15th. March 15th, the day she signed the strategic partnership agreement, the one she never read carefully, the one that spelled out exactly who held the reins. And just like that, the storm she had unleashed was beginning to turn on her. All that ambition, all that deceit, now tangled in a web she spun with her own arrogance. She thought she could control everything, manipulate everyone. But the moment she underestimated me, she signed her own downfall. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, and for a brief moment it felt like Christmas as a kid, the jittery excitement, the anticipation humming beneath my skin. Today wasn't about gifts under a tree, though. Today was the day Vi would finally understand just how deep of a hole she dug for herself. I slipped quietly out of bed, careful not to disturb Jen as she slept peacefully beside me. I grabbed my laptop from my overnight bag and settled in at the desk by the window. First order of business, the email, the one I had promised her. I took a moment to look it over, making sure every piece of evidence was arranged, time-stamped, and impossible to refute. I attached the partnership agreement from 5 years ago, an agreement that V clearly never read in full detail. In that document, she was listed as a managing partner whose authority depended entirely on the approval of Morgan Holdings. That wasn't just a name on paper. It was me. The agreement granted the primary investor, i.e. yours truly, the right to review all significant financial decisions. But, more importantly, it had a very specific clause. Any ethical violation, including but not limited to misuse of funds, breach of confidentiality, or conflicts of interest, triggers an immediate review of all assets and authority. I paired the contract with screenshots of Vi's expense reports from the past 3 months. Every personal purchase was highlighted in bright, unmistakable yellow: a $1,000 0 cents designer couch, an $8,000 0 cents watch, clearly a gift for Zeke, a series of weekend getaways all labeled client development but cross-referenced with social media posts showing romantic dinners and beach walks. Every single one of them was tied directly to her personal life, not her professional obligations. I added another batch of screenshots, email chains between Vi and Zeke. They discussed confidential client portfolios, pending merger activity, and long-term investment strategies. Privileged information that no outsider should ever lay eyes on, let alone someone working for a rival firm. I set the email to send at exactly 8:00 IM. Then, I opened the home security app. The camera feed flickered to life, showing Vi in our kitchen. She was still in yesterday's clothes, her hair a wild mess, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked like a storm had hit her. And in a way, one had. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up and tapped the screen. I watched her shoulders stiffen as she opened the email. She sat down hard at the table, eyes locked on the laptop. I wished the camera resolution had been higher, because I would have loved to see the exact moment her soul left her body. She scrolled frantically, jaw clenched, panic overtaking every inch of her. Then, she started calling me again. I declined the call. Instead, I sent her a short message: "No time, meeting with your CEO in 30 minutes. That did it. She bolted out of the kitchen, presumably to shower and throw herself together. I meanwhile took my time. I slipped into my best navy suit, the one Vi always said made me look dangerously successful. I adjusted the cuffs, checked my reflection, and called for an Uber to Vi's firm, housed in a sleek glass fortress in the heart of downtown. When I arrived, the receptionist buzzed me into the executive conference room. Inside were the top brass of the company, including Gloria, the sharp-eyed finance officer who had been raising eyebrows at Vi's spending for months. "Jack," the CEO said, rising to greet me with a firm handshake. "Thanks for coming, we appreciate your discretion." As we settled in, the door slammed open. Vi charged in like a hurricane, her appearance only half put together. Her blouse was misaligned, her hair still damp. Her eyes locked on me, wide with disbelief and betrayal. "Jack, what the hell are you doing here?" she rasped. I smiled, perfectly composed. "Just helping your leadership team understand how you've been laundering company funds and leaking sensitive information to a corporate mole." She sputtered, flailing for a comeback, then narrowed her eyes. "I saw you with Jen. Last night. You posted it. Is that what this is? Revenge? You're destroying me because I cheated?" I said nothing. I simply slid the folder across the table to the CEO, who began leafing through the printed records. Bank statements, expense reports, flagged emails. It was all there. Vi's voice climbed an octave. "This is because of her. You've wanted her all along. You think I don't see it?" The CEO raised a hand. "Vivian, your personal issues aren't relevant here. What concerns us is the $1,000 couch and the confidential documents you shared with a known corporate predator." Gloria chimed in, her tone cold and matter-of-fact. "Zeke Marshall attempted to access our internal server this morning. Our security team escorted him off the premises." Vi's face went pale. Her knees buckled slightly, and she dropped into a chair. That's not possible," she mumbled. "But how? How did you even access all this?" I didn't miss a beat. "Morgan Holdings," I said. "I'm your silent investor. You remember, the one with full oversight?" Realization dawned, slow and horrifying. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "You set me up," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. You set yourself up. I just built a contingency plan in case this ever happened." Security entered the room quietly, waiting for instructions. Vi stood, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Was it worth it? Destroying me? Just to be with her? How long has this been going on?" "This isn't about Jen," I said. "It's about your decisions, your betrayal. Cheating was just the appetizer. You went on to serve corporate fraud and espionage for dessert." "You bastard," she shouted. "You'll regret this." The guards gently guided her toward the exit. As she crossed the threshold, she turned one last time. Fury and heartbreak mingled in her expression. The CEO looked at me once the room had settled. "That was intense. Are you okay?" I nodded. "I'm fine. Just glad it's over. We're grateful you brought this to our attention. This could have cost the company millions. We'll give her a choice: resign quietly or face prosecution. And Jack? I'm sorry about your marriage." "No need," I said. "I've been preparing for this outcome for years." As I stepped out of the building, my phone exploded with alerts. Mac had texted, "Dude, check your cameras. Vi's destroying your house." I pulled up the feed. B was in full meltdown mode, throwing picture frames, tearing through drawers, screaming at the ceiling. It was like a scene from a soap opera, only this was real life. I texted Mac back, "Let her go wild. Nothing important left there anyway." By the time I met Jen for lunch, Vi had called me 37 times and left 14 voicemails. Most were furious, rambling, desperate. The last one, though, made me pause for a moment. "You and that expletive planned this, didn't you? I saw the way she looked at you at the Christmas party. Was she yours back then, too? Did you set me up because you wanted her? Is that what this was?" I stared at my phone, not angry, not amused, just exhausted. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about Jen. This was about the truth. This was about consequences. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. "I will burn your life to the ground, you hear me? You think you're untouchable with your stupid Morgan holdings? I'll make you regret this, both of you." That was the last voicemail Vi left before I blocked her number again. The venom in her voice wasn't surprising, just more confirmation that the woman I once loved had long since been replaced by someone I couldn't even recognize. I stared at the phone for a moment, thumb hovering over the delete button. Jen reached across the table and gently took my hand. "You okay? You look tense." I deleted the message and gave her fingers a reassuring squeeze. "V's losing it. She thinks you and I conspired against her from the beginning." Jen raised one perfect eyebrow. "Seriously? I didn't even know you were interested in me until yesterday." "Exactly," I said, "but when you're drowning in guilt and self-destruction, it's easier to blame everyone else." Jen didn't say anything for a moment, just nodded. Her calm presence was a grounding force I hadn't realized I needed. "So?" she asked softly. "What's next?" I smiled. Phase 2. And with that, Phase 2 was officially underway. The very next morning, I met with Dave, my lawyer, at his office downtown. The guy looked like he hadn't slept in a week, but when he saw me, his eyes brightened like he'd just hit the legal jackpot. "Jack," he said, clapping me on the back, "you couldn't have timed this better. I've been going through everything and, legally speaking, this is poetry." I raised an eyebrow as I took a seat. "Poetry?" "The partnership agreement VI signed 5 years ago," he continued, pulling up files on his laptop. "It's airtight. The ethical violations clause alone triggers a full audit of all assets acquired during your partnership. And since you were the primary financial backer through Morgan Holdings, you're positioned beautifully." I grinned. "And what does that mean for Vi?" Dave leaned back, ticking off items on his fingers. "Let's see. The house, bought with a mortgage your family guaranteed. The BMW, leased through your business. The vacation home in Tahoe, acquired through a joint venture but funded 80% by your private investments. Even her designer wardrobe, purchased mostly on the company's dime, through accounts you helped her access. In other words," I said, "she walks away with—" "About 18 grand in personal savings," Dave replied. "And the student loans you stopped paying last month." I laughed. I wanted to be thorough. Dave shook his head in admiration. "You learned from the best." We spent the next hour putting everything into motion, submitting paperwork, freezing joint accounts, initiating the asset review. By noon, the machine was humming along, slowly, yes, but with relentless precision. I returned to the hotel where Jen was waiting in the lobby, radiant in a soft cream blouse and fitted skirt. She stood when she saw me, eyes searching mine. "Well," she asked as we walked to a nearby cafe. "Let's just say Vi's about to discover what financial ruin actually looks like," I said. Jen winced slightly. "You sound ruthless." "Deserved," I replied without hesitation. "She didn't just cheat. She tried to drag my career down with hers. If I hadn't fed her false leads, I could have been accused of insider trading. I could have gone to jail." "When I put it that way," Jen nodded. "Still, a few people at the office are already whispering. They think I'm the reason your marriage ended." "Let them whisper," I said. I reached across the table and took her hand. "We know the truth. Vi destroyed our marriage all on her own. You just happened to be the brilliant, beautiful woman who showed up at exactly the right time." Jen blushed. "Charmer. No wonder she thinks you manipulated her." My phone buzzed again, this time from S, V's sister. "Vi showed up at my apartment at 3 a.m., her message read, screaming, hysterical, accusing me of betrayal for giving you those documents." We arranged to meet in the hotel lounge after lunch. When S arrived, she looked wrecked. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun. She dropped into a chair across from me with a long sigh. "You okay?" I asked gently. S had always been the grounded one in Vi's family. "I'm fine," she said, rubbing her temples. I told her the truth. That she betrayed herself. The cheating. The stolen funds. The leaks. That was all her. "She's staying with your folks?" Me nodded. "Yeah, and they think you're the devil now. She convinced them this was all a setup from the beginning." I shrugged. It wasn't from the beginning, just from the moment I realized what kind of person she was. S gave a surprised laugh. "That's fair. You want to hear the wildest part?" I leaned in. "Always." She told me Zeke dumped her, called her damaged goods, and blocked her number the second things got messy. "Not shocked," I said. "He got what he wanted, or thought he did." His voice lowered. "And that $1,000 0-cents Italian couch she bought? Turns out she didn't use normal company funds. She pulled from a confidential budget, money allocated for the merger Zeke was supposedly spying on. So, she didn't just commit fraud. She stole from the exact project her boyfriend was trying to sabotage." I leaned back and whistled. "You seriously can't make this up." "I know," Giss said. "It's insane." "I had a feeling something like this would happen," I admitted. 5 years married to her taught me plenty. She couldn't resist flaunting her wealth, designer clothes, flashy cars, extravagant vacations. S narrowed her eyes. "Wait, did you say 5 years?" "Yeah, Jack. How far back did you plan this?" I smiled. "About 3 months before that Portland trip. That's when I started laying the trap. Every conversation about work, every deal I casually dropped into dinner talk, it was all bait, misinformation. The real projects, locked up behind airtight NDAs she never had access to." "Holy hell," Sess whispered. "When she fed that fake info to Zeke, her company ended up chasing ghosts, millions wasted on wild goose chases. Zeke was exposed as a fraud within 2 weeks, fired on the spot. Nobody wants a known corporate spy." "And V?" S asked. She unraveled. Started sending me these long manic messages blaming me for everything, her career, her reputation, said I was the reason she had nothing left. "I'm guessing you didn't respond." "No. Had Dave send a cease and desist." "And the prenup?" He tried to challenge it. S chuckled and shook her head. "She really never saw you coming, did she?" "No," I said. "She didn't." The judge didn't even flinch. He dismissed Vi's attempt to contest the prenup in under 10 minutes, citing the clear evidence of her ethical violations and financial misconduct. There was no room left for her pleas. No sympathy for the person who built her empire on deception and betrayal. She didn't lose because of what I did, she lost because of the choices she made. And in the end, the better choice, it had never been her. It had always been mine. And speaking of better choices, karma has a funny way of circling back. Just a few weeks after the ink dried on our divorce decree, a courier arrived at my door with a padded envelope. No return address, no fanfare, just a simple delivery. Inside, I found a single house key, our old house, and a note, scribbled in V's unmistakable handwriting. "I get it now. You didn't just help build my career. You designed it with a kill switch. A self-destruct protocol, hidden in plain sight. No apology, no begging for forgiveness, just an acknowledgement. A resigned admission that she'd finally seen the chessboard for what it was, and realized she'd never been the one in control." I folded the note in half and dropped it into a drawer I never opened. It was over. A few days later, Mac stopped by my new downtown loft for a quick catch-up over coffee. He walked in, took one look around at the sleek furniture and city view, and grinned. "Divorce looks good on you," he said, half joking. "Revenge looks even better," I shot back, raising my mug. Mac laughed, but his eyes searched mine for something deeper. Was all this worth it, though? The years of planning, the fail-safes, the contingencies? I leaned back in my chair. "It was never about revenge, Mac. It was about protecting what I built. It was insurance, like the kind you hope you'll never need." He nodded slowly. "Still, S says V's working at Target now. Couldn't you have left her something?" I shrugged. "She left herself nothing. Everything after her betrayal, that was just the consequences catching up." "And that Zeke clown?" Mac asked. "Unemployable in the industry," I replied. "Burned too many bridges. Last I heard he moved to Florida. Fitting, right?" "Florida man strikes again," Mac said, chuckling. Right on cue, Jen walked in with Thai takeout in hand. Things between us were easy, Real. No manipulation, no control games. She practically lived in my loft now, but we were in no rush. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I was walking on solid ground. Later that night, I showed her the note from Vi. "Are you going to reply?" she asked. I shook my head. No point. There's nothing left to say. And just like that, it was over. Completely and finally over. Since the dust settled, my career has skyrocketed. I was named lead of the new expansion division after the merger. Our company's stock price tripled. My stock options are now worth more than I ever imagined. I didn't just bounce back. I blew the ceiling off the life Vi thought she controlled. She could have been part of this. Instead, she's back in her childhood bedroom, folding t-shirts in retail, watching the world she thought was hers move on without her. A final piece of irony? That gaudy $1,000 0 cents Italian couch she bought to impress Zeke? It's now in my corner office. A personal trophy. Not out of pettiness, but as a reminder of what arrogance and deceit will cost you when you bet against someone who's always 5 steps ahead. S texted me yesterday. "V saw your promotion post." She cried for hours. It came from an unknown number. I didn't reply. Some questions don't need answers, they answer themselves. Would I have ever triggered the contingency plan if she hadn't betrayed me? No. I built it to protect what mattered, not to destroy her. But once she crossed that line, once she chose to burn everything down just to feel powerful, she gave me no choice. "You know what the best revenge is?" Jen asked me last night, curled up beside me. "What?" I said. "Living well," she whispered. "And you're killing it." She's right. The most satisfying revenge isn't about ruining someone. It's about giving them the rope, letting them tie their own noose while thinking they're winning, then walking away and building something incredible from the ashes. My thought she had found someone better. Turns out, I did.